Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at some spree cards in the paper version of Outlaws of Thunder Junction to see which are some cards that I think will be really cool in Puzzle Quest as well. So, let's get into it. I got some images of a bunch of them, and these are just the ones that stood out to me. There will be others that I'm sure if you look at might stand out to you, and even the card that I got to spoil, Caught in the Crossfire, which is going to be a mythic in Puzzle Quest, was I think only an uncommon in paper. So we may see that some of the effects of these cards get changed rather drastically as they get adapted to Puzzle Quest. But nonetheless, just looking at the general theme of what each of these do, I think we can reliably guess correctly what some of them are going to generally do. So the first of those is actually a common, this Dance of the Tumbleweeds. So paper version with spree is going to make it so that for +1, you're going to search your library for a basic land card or a desert card and put it on the battlefield. And the other one is going to make it so that you're going to create an XX elemental token equal to the number of lands you control. Now, just as a quick reminder, spree in Puzzle Quest is going to work as a rising counter based on the number of gem matches you make in a turn. So if you make one match, you'll be at spree 1, 2 matches spree 2, 3 matches spree 3, and so on and so forth. So the other thing to keep in mind is that with Caught in the Crossfire as an example, that one only had 2 spree options in paper, but in Puzzle Quest has 3. So we very well may wind up seeing some spree options that only have 2, and we very well may wind up seeing spree options, other ones that have 3. We just don't know yet. So this one really stood out to me because we have Desert spoiled. I got to spoil that one. And Desert is ridiculous. And so this is just going to be potentially another way to fetch that Desert, put it on the battlefield, and also get an elemental token that could wind up getting more powerful based on the number of lands and reinforcements you control. And so I could very well see something like this providing us with both defense to win the game and offense to win the game if we have Desert. So this looks really, really cool to me. I also like land decks. I have fun with them. So this definitely is a standout to me. I don't think it would be a common in Puzzle Quest with these effects, though. I mean, it could be, right? We've got the Ooze card, but we'll see. The second one is going to be Final Showdown. This is a mythic in paper. And this one's got 3 spree options. First one is going to make it so that all creatures lose all abilities until end of turn. Second one is going to make it so that you choose a creature you control and give it indestructible. And the third one is going to destroy all creatures. Now, this could work out in a number of different ways in Puzzle Quest. We finally got our first card that gives your things the indestructible keyword in the last set, but that card doesn't work. So the indestructible is not a true prevention of destruction. So ideally, if they do wind up going the indestructible route for this card, they wind up fixing indestructible to make it so that destroy effects don't destroy indestructible cards, whereas things like exile still manage to get rid of them. But we'll just have to see. I'm wondering if this winds up being something like remove all evergreens from all creatures until end of turn, and then maybe, I don't know, something over here, give your creatures prevent damage or something, or indestructible, and then maybe this will be destroy all opponents' creatures. I don't know. I'm just guessing. They could go the make your creatures indestructible and then destroy everything, and maybe you keep some, but they do wind up tweaking things. So this is definitely one to keep an eye out for. Next up, we've got Great Train Heist. This one is a 1-mana red spell. It's got 3 spree options, and it has the first spree option is going to untap all creatures you control. After your combat phase, there's another one. Traditionally in Puzzle Quest, this winds up working out as getting bonus swaps, and so if this winds up having a spree 1 get a bonus swap, that in and of itself is going to make this a decent card. All of these spree cards have low base mana costs, so I wonder how they're going to implement that in Puzzle Quest for the rest of the spree cards. But just getting the bonus swap from this would be really good. The other spree options on this card seem rather underwhelming to me. Giving your creatures +1/+0 and first strike, and then choosing an opponent, and whenever a creature you control deals damage to that player, create a treasure token, means that maybe you get 3 to 6 treasure tokens, and you also get a very slight power boost. But really the bread and butter here is definitely going to be getting the extra swap. So we'll see how this works. If this is indeed a bonus swap, that's definitely going to help for Spree, because Spree wants you to have bonus matches if you can, and a bonus swap would enable you to play more Spree cards. So this one in Puzzle Quest I think would be really good for enabling the mechanic as a Spree card. The next one, this one could be pretty useful, actually. This is a black one, right? It's got 2 Spree options. The first one, you're going to fetch a card from your library and put it on the top. I would guess that it's probably like, look at the top 4 different cards in your library, put one of them in your hand. That would make sense to me for Puzzle Quest. And then this target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. Having more card draw in black is always nice. We like having card draw in not blue. And so not only does this give us a fetch, but it also gives us card draw. So this here could wind up being really, really nice. They could even wind up being something like rearrange the top 4 cards of your library and then draw 3, right? So we'll have to see how this one works out. But this is one that I feel like could be a very useful utility card. Next one on the list here is going to be One Last Job. This one is going to return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, a mount or a vehicle from your graveyard to the battlefield, and an aura or equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this would work out really well with Dakon, who's going to be throwing things into the graveyard, or really just other discard and draw effects or things of that particular nature that we do have available to us in white. And so this here, I think, could actually wind up being really useful for just bringing things back from the graveyard and bringing a whole bunch of things back from the graveyard, right? Like creatures, mounts, vehicles, auras, equipments, just getting a whole spread of things could be really, really neat. So I'm definitely interested to see how this one's adapted to Puzzle Quest. I could see it being the exact same in that Spree 1, return a creature, Spree 2, return a mount or vehicle, Spree 3, return an aura to your hand or equipment or something like that. Give it full mana, but we'll have to see. The returning an aura doesn't quite work out as well in Puzzle Quest. It would probably just go to your hand since they don't work as permanents like they do in paper, but we'll see. We'll see. This one, the Rush of Dread, gives me a Rush of Dread, actually. This card, if it adapts anything like this paper version for Puzzle Quest, is going to be a card that's going to make me drop some bricks in my pants. So Rush of Dread has 3 Spree options as well. First one is going to be your opponent sacrifices half of their creatures. Second one is going to be your opponent discards half of their cards. And the third one is going to be your opponent loses half of their life. So all 3 of these effects are just incredible. And you put all 3 of them together and you've got just an absolutely insane card. So we don't have, like, this counts here as life loss. It doesn't count as damage. So hopefully things that like double damage won't actually make it so your opponent just auto loses the game. It's not supposed to work that way, but some of those cards do work that way. Nonetheless, all 3 effects of this card are just bananas. So even if this winds up being like a 20 mana mythic that's just your opponent sacrifices half their creatures, discards half their cards, and loses half their life, I could see this as being like an almost auto add to almost any of my decks, right? Like even the Liana of the Veil, getting rid of half their creatures, half of their cards, half of their life, and then all the other life that they would lose for losing things from their hand in the battlefield would just be so, so good. So this card here actually scares me. I think that this card, if it comes out like this, will be terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I'd really love to hear if you guys are as scared of this thing as I am. And if you think that it would be as big of a deal if that thing made its way into Puzzle Quest in this form right here. Because with this, they don't even need to amend that. They can just have it come in like that. Next one here is one that I am personally very hopeful for in terms of how it might come into Puzzle Quest. As you guys probably all know, green is just incredibly weak in Puzzle Quest right now. It could use a boon, something to make it just stand out a little bit more, and I feel like this card could do that for us. So this one's got 3 Spree options. The first option, you're going to mill 4 cards from your library. It means destroy the top 4 of your library. And then you could take up to 2 creatures or lands and put them in your hand. Then here, the second one is you may put 2 creature cards from your hand on the battlefield. I think this would just turn into give the first 2 creatures in your hand full mana, right? So bring things back, give them full mana. And then finally, creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So we don't have indestructible in Puzzle Quest really totally. Like we said with the earlier Spree card, maybe we get indestructible. having it be until end of turn doesn't really make sense Puzzle Quest wise, right? Like this is an instant for paper, so I can see why this makes sense for paper. But for Puzzle Quest, the hexproof would need to last until the beginning of your next turn for this to actually be at all interesting. Like they could give it flash, but I mean, let's face it, flash in Puzzle Quest is presently garbage. So this here could wind up being super amazing. Like just getting 2 free creatures and putting them on the battlefield. Like green's creatures are generally pretty weak. So like if we just take an average one like Galta, right, and we get that thing on the battlefield, like I feel like that would be a way that you could use Galta in a meta where it's just otherwise impossible to use it. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Smuggler's Surprise turns out in Puzzle Quest. And then this one is the very last one that I have for us here in today's video. And then this one here is going to have 3 spree options as well. And we've got counter target spell, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, and draw 2 cards and discard a card. So for Puzzle Quest, I could very well see this as being some kind of mana drain right here in the first one, or maybe even like your opponent discards the first card with mana from their hand. I really doubt that it'll do that. I imagine it's probably more likely going to be something like drain mana from the first ability. And then the second one, like reinforce, right? Create a copy of a creature or reinforce it. Something like that could definitely work over here. And just getting free copies or reinforcements of creatures is always a nice effect to have. And then getting card draw out of that as well. So there's just so many different effects on these. And spree is just going to be so easy to make happen in Puzzle Quest, I feel like, that these could wind up being really good. So those are mine for today. Let me know which of these stood out the most to you, which ones you'd be most excited to see in Puzzle Quest. Let me know if there's an adaptation of one of these cards that you think should be different in Puzzle Quest than what I was guessing at. I don't know. I could be wrong on all of them. I could be right on all of them. I'm almost assuredly not right on all of them, though, because they just change up some of the cards so much that they're like totally different power levels and identities. So I think that's one of the fun things about the game. I like that. Anywho, leave some comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think of the cards. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.